the disaster declaration issued by Governor Pritzker. Because of this order related to COVID-19 health concerns affecting the state and the city, the mayor has determined that an in-person meeting at City Hall with all participants may not be practical or prudent. All the persons and staff may not all be physically present at City Hall due to the disaster, and physical attendance at City Hall may be limited. To participate remotely during the public comment or public hearing portion of the meeting, please join by phone at 1-620-869-1488, PIN 230-861-354#.
Thank you very much. Do a roll call.
Alderperson Robinson. Hurt. Gilbert.
Present.
Swanson.
Here. Sorry.
You're fine.
Parker.
Here.
Poulos.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
And Mayor Tomes.
Here. Real good. Public comment. Anybody for public comment? I'm looking at the audience here, and I imagine there's none. Virtual. Anybody virtually? Seeing none, we will then move on. First up, is that Tim? Information technology presentation on simplicity.
Well, let's try and get things set up the way we need them here.
Technology works.
Do I-
Here's the
Yeah.
test.
No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. I'm sure all of you, when you saw the agenda, you saw information technology, and you're like, oh,
Yes,
IT, what are they going to talk about? But the good news is, I'm not asking for any money tonight,
Right.
which is extremely unusual for IT.
It is exactly.
So just to get started, what I'd like to talk with you about tonight is briefly, just for the general public's purpose, to go over real quickly what some of the city council goals are. One in particular I wanted to focus on real quick is this goal number 2 of communications. And the way it reads on the city's website is utilize dynamic and innovative communications as a primary strategy in marketing, promoting, and engaging both internal and external stakeholders about city issues, projects, services, and opportunities. So tonight I'd like to introduce you to an app that more or less has just kind of fallen into the city's lap to take a look at, perhaps satisfying this goal of enhancing communications throughout the city of Rock Island. So Simplicity, in its simplest form, is a basic communications tool, okay? It's an app that we would load on our smartphones, and as most of you know, a lot of people carry these little guys anymore. If you want to reach people, this is kind of the best way to do it anymore. Using a smartphone provides you with a lot of options that you don't necessarily have with a piece of paper and a pencil, perhaps. Looking at the slide presentation, what Smart City, the Simplicity platform, is designed to do is introduce you to the ability to use your smartphone as a way to communicate with the residents overall. Now, the company Simplicity started off in Europe with their application and basically introduced it in Europe and had some success, and they decided to bring the product to the United States. They are new to the United States. They are in California and in Illinois at this point. And just to kind of give you some idea, they've been published in a lot of different advertising, a lot of newspapers and so forth, and they're focused on Illinois. So what is Simplicity? Well, it's a smart communications platform for municipalities and residents, okay? One of the things that's important to note is it's not going to have a cost for residents, and it will not have a cost for the city of Rock Island, okay? The idea here is that you load an app on your phone, and if you want to receive information about what's going on with the city of Rock Island, or any of its partners for that matter, you can receive updates, you can look at the calendar, and if you decide you want to submit some sort of concern to the city of Rock Island, you can use your smartphone to do so. And tonight I'll just take a couple of quick minutes to show you. But one of the things I'd like to do, sort of sidestepping from the presentation, is to let you take a look at a nice little video that's been made available. And one of the things I need to do is make sure that the folks at home can see this. So we're going to share this screen real quick. I'm going to share this screen right here. And while we share this screen, we're going to go to this bookmark. So another community in the state is Homer Glen. Homer Glen is in the process of implementing simplicity. And so what I'm going to do is let this video play for you that gives you some idea as to what this is all about.
Homer Glen has a new communication app, Simplicity. Simplicity is free and allows residents to easily find community updates, announcements, and events. It also gives residents a way to report issues while on the go. It is available for Apple iOS and Android and is easy to download. Go to the Google Play or App Store and search Simplicity. Get the app with the symbol of the yellow S. Start by finding your city. We're Homer Glen. When asked, what are you interested in? Choose the type of village news you want to receive. Options include City Hall updates, for seniors, kids and family, schools, crime and safety, local business, and more. For early adopters of the app, the Heritage Corridor Business Alliance will be raffling off some fun prizes. Set local business as one of your preferences so you can keep up to date with the HCBA and enter their raffle drawing. To ensure that your device will get smart notifications based on your preferences, tap your Settings app, tap Notifications, tap Simplicity, and finally, tap Allow Notifications. Simplicity's main screen is a scrolling feed of announcements and news in the village. To see events happening in Homer Glen, in order of date, tap on the calendar icon on the bottom toolbar next to the announcements icon. Through Simplicity, Homer Glen has partnered with other organizations here in town in order to provide residents with specific village content. A quick way to see a specific organization's information, like the Homer Township Public Library, is to tap on their logo at the top of the screen. For residents who want to notify the village about an issue or make a suggestion, simply tap on the Homer Glen logo button at the bottom right corner. From the menu, tap Message Municipality. Choose the village department that will receive the message. Fill out the comment form with your message and email address. There is an option to include the GPS location of the issue and/or a photo. Photos can be taken on the spot with a mobile device or uploaded directly from the photo library. Now, get ready to see important updates and discover local events with Simplicity.
So, just for your information, this weekend I did a little experimenting with what they just highlighted, which is this business of taking a photo, submitting a concern to the City of Rock Island. It is a button on there, and the way the system is set up currently is all these messages are just going to our generic mailbox called webmail@rigov.org. For the time being, those are managed by Samantha in the clerk's office. But what it did is send an email message that right here, all you have to do is click on it, and you can see the map of where I found my incident. And it turns out it was Ridgewood Road, 92nd Avenue. If I go back to the email message, I can also click on a photo. And what do you know? This was all about a little light that's having a little trouble out there on this stop sign. And it doesn't work, and it's bent. And so this is just a quick way. Of course, we're driving down the road, and my wife's like, "What are you doing?" So, I'm taking a picture, and I'm going to submit this. But the idea was to give the council some idea of some of the capabilities of this app. Now, we've talked about this type of functionality with other applications. One in particular we talked about was SeeClick Fix. And while this is not necessarily a SeeClick Fix would automatically integrate with CityWorks. This has one advantage that the SeeClick Fix didn't have, and that is it's free to us. And so it's free to us, the City of Rock Island and its residents. So, in essence, I think what we're going for here, and I've talked with the interim city manager, John Grip, about this a little bit. I think what we're going for here is to try and introduce this to the council, get them a little bit excited about it. And I think we'd like to move forward with rolling this out and just, kind of get the judgment from the council in terms of if you have any feedback about the application, any concerns you'd like to raise, or any comments you'd like to make.
I like it.
Okay.
What I've seen so far, I like it. I can see some great things to integrate it with the schools. You get the school system to go on board with it, you get the county to go on board with it, or something like that. And that would help make it even more robust.
Yes, and of course, that's being encouraged by Simplicity at this point.
Absolutely.
They're trying to get everybody possible on the system. They've asked me for contact information to the schools, the libraries, the King Center, police department, you name it, they're all asking for it. And going through the presentation, they have a belief that, we can increase our subscriber base by about 10% on a regular basis and month to month. And then they've already kind of made some promises as to what we would have available to us. Right now, they're saying in just 10 days. Well, we've already gone through the first 3 steps, so we're ready to launch whenever. We've got marketing materials, we have press releases available. One of the things that I started doing is putting a link on the bottom of my email address right here, so all you got to do is click on this and you can install the app from this link that's on the bottom. And so there's all kinds of little tools that we've made available. If there's no objection, we could make it available on the city's website so that anybody interested in the app could just click on it from the website, and there they go.
So when you say free, what does that mean? Because we all know nothing's actually free.
Nothing's actually free, right? Okay, so one of the realities is how most of these applications are funded is through advertising.
Right.
At some point, we're going to see advertising potentially on this app. But in the beginning, what they're trying to do is build up a customer base. And so for right now, there's little or no ads on this system. In time, we may eventually see ads. And exactly how many and what control, I don't really have any control over that. But another thing to keep in mind is that the application is still being improved upon. They continue to make enhancements here in the United States. And so,
Is there a
Trade-off.
geolocator on all the time then? So are
No.
they mining all that kind of data too?
no, you have some control over that with the app. And, when I went to,
If I'm a 75-year-old lady, I probably don't know how to.
I can't figure it out.
Yeah, I mean.
Right.
And I'm playing devil's advocate to.
Sure.
A little of this, because that is a little scary with.
Yeah.
But you really are anyway.
in the trial or the test that I did with regards to this reporting of an incident, the very first thing it did was prompt me if you want to allow the thing to use your GPS. And so I chose for this, while you're using the app, you can allow it to track you all the time, but that's not the best choice.
But you could have that with any
Yeah,
software
and I
you use.
understand.
You have to
Absolutely.
know. You have to know.
But the city's not blasting that out and holding us liable for that.
Do I understand this? This is two-way? I mean, they can communicate with their elected officials or council or department heads or whomever, and then we can respond back to them, or similar to the email, or?
That is an option. One of the things that this app is capable of that I didn't really highlight, but we could do, is polling. And so I did kind of play around with it. If you download the app and you put it on your phone, you may encounter this test poll that I did. Basically, I asked, hey, what color should we do the bridge lights for March? Okay?
That was easy.
It's just a simple, silly question, just to kind of give people a feel for what you could use it for. So, to answer your question, in the case of back and forth, we could create a quick poll, ask a question, try to get some feedback. Maybe it's a multiple choice, maybe it's a free form. And then, in this case, I actually give it the option to see what the results are.
Yeah,
And so
but-
right now,
But that goes out to everyone with the app, right?
anyone who has the app.
Like, my question is, can there be a section for each ward, but you can't, just put out information?
There could be. One of the things that the app does when you first install it is ask you which things you're interested in subscribing to. So you may not be interested in general stuff or holiday information, but you might be interested in Ward 3, or you might be interested in Ward 1. And so you can choose those things that you wish to track.
What's the city staff bandwidth for this? Do we have the availability within the city employees to actually do this? Because it sounds like a very good idea, But as we all know, the first time you don't get back to a resident, or the first time that something slips between the cracks,
Yeah.
something good rolls downhill really
That's an excellent question.
quickly.
But how does it connect with, like, one of us?
Well, we'd have to set it up with categories. You know, right now, if you loaded the app, I don't have any categories set up.
It loaded.
Okay, so if you go, our little logo's in the lower right-hand corner.
Right.
You click
right.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got an option right there that says communicate with the municipality. If you tap that, it's just a general form right now that'll get submitted to the general mailbox. But it is possible for us to create
You have
categories,
to create your own
create
categories.
categories and go to
So it's not a
specific areas.
preset category.
Right.
Okay.
I wanted to stay away from that in this case because I didn't want to automatically divert messages to a particular department in this case. But to answer your question, to me, and I had for a prop, I had a pencil in my hand, but I'll use a pen. You know, this is a tool. This software is a tool, just like a pen is a tool. And it's really only useful for someone who utilizes it.
Absolutely.
But-
But our residents wouldn't know if they would think that we're using it.
So,
I mean,
so it can be
That's
set
the
up
idea.
that the message, like if you had like a category for each ward, so that those messages would go direct to each alderman.
Could be set up that way.
Could be set up that way.
That's right.
Well, I have a question about the back end. I'm assuming since this is free, that means we don't control the database where this information is going to be stored?
That's not entirely true. We do have access to, there's an admin console, and I didn't necessarily pull it up in my presentation, but it is available. It's a simple interface. It gives people the ability to, let's see if I can get to the screen that shows it. There's the admin platform. It's just a web browser interface. You get to choose whether you want to send an announcement or if it's an event of some kind that you'd like to schedule. You can include a small graphic, maybe you want a video, maybe it's just a quick blurb of text that you want to send out. But
it
it
doesn't-
also has the ability to go and collect information from specific areas on the city's website or other websites. And so we can set it up, they call that scraping, where it can automatically go and collect information from the city's website and automatically put it on there, which is one method. The other method is somebody gets to put information in.
Well, I guess I'm referring to in the actual database where the information is going to be stored. So whether it's, when you submit the photos, when you submit the text, I mean, this information going back and forth, I'm assuming it's sitting on a database in the cloud.
It is.
That we are just, because this here is just a portal,
Yes,
but we don't actually have access to the actual database, so we can control that data, correct?
we can add to it.
Okay.
And if there are things in it that we want to remove, we can remove them. Let's say something gets put out there and we went, oh, no, we don't want to.
So I guess I'm asking on the staffing proponent, will we need to have someone trained up on how to administer the database or just administer the portal? Because those are two different things then, right?
Right. They will not need training on administering a database.
Gotcha.
But like using a pencil, somebody would need training on how to write the appropriate information to put out there.
Okay.
how much time do you see a week being allocated to that?
I think a lot of that depends on how interactive the city wants to be with its users, in this case, our residents.
So you said, so it can go and scrape information from the website. So it could go and pull all the city events that are put in the calendar. It could go and scrape all the news and announcement things that get put out there so that a staff member doesn't even have to,
Which it's already doing.
yeah, I noticed.
Yeah.
Because that's what's.
Yeah, it's already doing that.
So it does that automatically?
It does. But I found there were a couple of things that I wasn't terribly excited about, so I removed a couple of things and added them myself. One of the things that I found somewhat confusing or disturbing at this point is, on the 14th, we've got a council meeting scheduled, and it shows the time is 7:45. Well, that's because the time changes. And so it's collecting information, and right now, when Monday comes, it'll show the 6:45. But for right now, some of these things that are in the future, they're not corrected for time change quite yet.
I mean, I love the concept of it. I wish, it was actually to be able to be integrated in our systems that we have instead of this being an outside system, because pretty much this is standalone. It seems like it's another social media type thing. It does have the ability to go back and forth. So I agree with what Alderperson Bill Healy was saying. how much time is that really going to take? Because we already have issues with not really following through with our social media packages. Would this just be another clog that we're throwing out there, and then we have to struggle with trying to now stream that all together with,
Right.
Facebook, Twitter, whatever else that we have?
Well, I don't really want to steal Samantha's thunder, because I know she's going to talk a little bit about ARPA coming up.
Okay,
One of the things that she's going to talk about is communications also,
bringing those together.
You want to talk about that, yeah.
talk about communications. And
But-
so there might be some ideas to address that particular concern.
But it's not like this app is for residents to post information.
No, that's not what it's really intended for, although it does allow a resident to report a concern,
Report a concern or participate in a poll.
make some sort of suggestion,
Right.
maybe there's a
Or suggestion.
pothole or something.
Or get information, correct? If we want to blast something out, hey, red, white, and boom,
Exactly.
something like that.
Board meeting.
Yeah, something like
meetings.
that. I mean, I think it's a very good idea. I just look at, I don't want something positive turning into a negative, is all I'm concerned about. Let's use, how is the app to deal with? Nike, they have an app, Sneakers, where they specifically release shoes on that. The app is trash, and they had to actually hire someone within to run just that app because it was so bad. And I just don't want to see something that is a great tool potentially being gone down the wrong path.
Well, we've already established a working
Yeah, good.
relationship with Simplicity at this point, and they are more than willing to work with us to answer or address any of those concerns. One of the things that we could do is go slow, perhaps, or introduce it to more people around the city of Rock Island, sort of as a soft rollout, rather than making a big splash, and kind of get used to it and give people the opportunity to really see how this is going to work in our environment. What I will say is that the admin platform is extremely simple.
Good.
Okay, so while it's good to be this simple, it kind of limits what you can do with it. So, it's a trade-off. But,
But you could have that with anything. If we custom-built our own,
absolutely.
that was integrated with our system and everything else, you could still have the same thing. It's, they would say garbage in, garbage out type of
Yeah, that's-
situation.
And cost a lot more.
Somebody's got to,
that's the pen.
I mean, the question
Used
we have to
incorrectly.
ask ourselves is, what is different from this than Facebook? 'Cause we have tons of Facebook pages throughout the city, and they're not being maintained, they're not being upkeep. So this is just adding to that.
Yours is
Right, and
always.
that's the perfect example I wanted to use. Individual departments do better jobs at advertising and using their social media. So would this take over their social media accounts, or will we still have that individual effort from
Oh,
different departments?
In fact, what this admin council's future capabilities is intended to do is to, if you put something in the admin portal, it's automatically going to populate a Facebook page if you'd like.
Okay.
And so they are working on those capabilities where you post it once to the Simplicity platform, and then it can automatically feed
The other feed.
Facebook or Twitter or whichever ones you need it to go to. But I don't want to promise those things, because again, the app is still in its early phases here in the United States.
That's my only concern, I'm sorry, that's my only concern about, because I know I love this type of communication,
Yeah.
but if it's not really going to fit what we need, or if it's going to cause more of a hindrance, because we have other departments who are not in sync with each other, that's kind of going to be the issue.
back to that communication person that we've talked about, or company, or whatever you want to talk about it.
Right.
That's the rest of it. And Samantha, I think, is going to talk about it in her presentation a little bit, is do we need a communication person, or whatever, that then this becomes more
In
useful?
the unlikely event that we go ahead and jump into this with both feet, and we try it for a year, and we said, you know what, this is no good. No harm, no foul.
No harm, no foul.
We don't have any contracts with them saying, you're stuck with us for 3 years.
No.
And then who's going to evaluate the success of this?
I think how the success would be evaluated at this point is if we see subscriber going up, okay? One of the things the admin council gives is there's a little spot for insights. And basically, it shows how many people have downloaded the app, how many of them are selecting or choosing things that are on that app, how many of them are looking at it, how many went out. All of these little details are metrics, if you will.
Right,
They're
right.
going to be available on that. And those statistics, those details, that would be how we might measure success versus failure.
Sure.
And these are all great questions, too. And we're just showing things that are potentially out there for us to start addressing the communication portion of it. But they are great questions, because we'll want to make sure that the apps that we do look at have these abilities.
Yeah.
What's Homer Glen said about it? Has anyone talked to anyone from Homer Glen and their administration?
Not yet,
Okay,
not yet. But it looks to me like they've jumped in with both feet.
yeah, absolutely.
If you go to their site, they've got all these other organizations that are participating. They're even giving prizes away and stuff like that, so.
So are you looking for a yay or nay from us?
I think I'm trying to make sure I don't get a nay right off the bat.
Action?
Some sort of direction or, judging, I'm trying to judge the council's interest in it, quite honestly. I don't know that, John and I have talked about this a little bit. I don't necessarily know that I was looking for a vote so much as I didn't want to present this to the council and have several of the members of council go, no. That's always a danger, right? So,
Well,
Well,
I'm in favor of it. I mean, especially if it's no cost of, I don't see anything that can happen negative on us if we have control, so we can control some of that stuff. It will be interesting to start seeing what type of ads and how the ads are going to be submitted, if that becomes a nuisance, for unappealing, because again, we'll get the flack for it,
right.
so
We could be the ones putting the ads in.
that's not always a good thing.
I think it could be a great tool, as long as it's done properly and issues are addressed and it's being used. I think it's great.
Go ahead.
I just want to see, speaking for myself, I would want a third ward category, whatever you want to call it.
You can pilot that.
I have a website with the blog, so I'm already.
Jenny's out, Jenny and Dylan and Randy.
Jenny can't talk.
Randy can't talk. Was there any questions? Thoughts?
I'm on mic.
All right, Randy, you on? You got any questions?
No.
And I think it sounds really good.
Good.
Thumbs up from me.
All right. There you go.
Okay? Thanks. Thank you.
Very much. Next up, we have Samantha talk about ARPA.
Can I? Yes. Tim, how long would it take to implement this then?
More or less running now.
Okay.
How much advertising we want to do.
Okay, so just really just fine tuning how, like, the filters or, gotcha.
So,
Keep going.
can you give us, for those of us who may be more challenged, a tutorial, like how to put the link or whatever at the end of our signatures on our emails? So that we can, and then I can put something out on my blog.
All right. The presentation's up there.
All right, good evening. I'm Samantha Ganji. For those of you that don't know me, I am the city clerk for the City of Rock Island. And I'm here tonight to present on the American Rescue Plan Act, the development and guiding principles, and to get feedback from council on the process. No, it's not green. Red. There we go. Got it. Thank you. So real quick, I just want to provide a brief overview. You've already all have heard this. So just a quick refresher. Eligible uses, public health funding, negative economic impacts, lost public sector revenue, which I will discuss later on in the presentation in more detail, pay for essential workers, and then our infrastructure projects as well. It's important to note here that we must show how the investment will address an identified need, so it needs to be evidence-based. For the exception of the lost public sector revenue category, all of those will need some type of evidence to provide to the U.S. Treasury. So as we report projects to the U.S. Treasury, we will be using these 7 expenditure categories. As you can see, addressing negative economic impacts, that's where we could categorize our downtown project. And we can provide evidence there with census tract data as well as lost revenue, among other things. So just to kind of give you an idea of where we would classify that project. And there's even, it goes into further detail with the U.S. Treasury, but I won't go into that boring detail for you all tonight. And so back in January, we got the Treasury's final rule. So long awaited, and I think we as the City of Rock Island are in a great position because we have been patient and we have waited. So we have the opportunity to see what other cities have done, what's been successful, what's not been successful, and kind of some of the methodology that they use to come up with the projects. And so one of the things that this final rule provides is greater flexibility, as well as a wider range of uses, and it's simpler. One of the things that it expands upon is drinking water projects under infrastructure. Previously, under the interim rule, drinking water was not allowable, projects such as lead remediation and things of that nature. And it also clarifies certain capital expenditures, which is really important for us as we go through and look through our capital projects. And the most significant change is it allows us to take $10 million as lost revenue for general government services. So the interim rule had that formula that we'd have to calculate. Well, we didn't have any lost revenue in 2021. So we are able to use that $10 million. And what's great about this is it's broad use, minimal restrictions, and no requirement for justification to the feds on lost revenue. So that is huge. Of course, we still won't be able to use the funds for, to offset pensions and tax revenues or, rainy day funds. So there's still a few restrictions, but very minimal. So here's the process and plan development that I propose. We take a data center approach. So, data tells us a story, right? How can it tell our story? Because if we don't know where we are, how are we going to know where we're going? So I propose, and many cities have done this already, doing an internal data analysis, meeting with each of you individually, getting all your thoughts and input, meeting with all our city departments as well. We've also got our strategic plan, right? Let's use that to drive us as well. And we've got other internal data, of course. I always like to use CED because they have, the GIS software and all of that, for housing and economic, and just depend on our departments too for some of that internal data that we already have. The external data, we would compile that from, we do a survey, town hall, to make sure we have the low and the high-tech community engaged, right? Those that might not participate in surveys can come to a town hall and really engage our community. And then also any other external data. There's certain projects or certain categories that the feds do require us to use census tract data. And then there's some other things that we can use as well that's out there. And then compile all of that into a spreadsheet, or compile all the projects, all the feedback, all the data, and then the process. So the first step in the process would be, I've kind of borrowed it from another city, but a form. It would be an internal form to ensure that the project is eligible under the Treasury rule. And I'll show you a slide later on. Tim, is this the updated slide?
He went downstairs.
Oh, okay. I don't know if he... and then having the form is going to have various things such as, is there matching funds? What are your performance indicators? Is there census tract data needed for this project? What's the amount of the project? What's the timeline of the project? And also things like, is the project existing? Is it a new project? And things like that. So let's see if that's on there next. And then also, so from that form, once we determine whether or not the project is eligible, let's move it forward to scoring. And having a scoring matrix or rubric, and I'll show you an example of that, what other cities have used and something I've kind of adopted, and score each project, and then provide you all with the list after, scoring those projects. Just keeping in mind that that's an objective lens that we are using for those projects based on all the data we received. And then also in this plan, outlining the checks and balances, the internal controls, as well as policies and procedures that we will need to follow, not just with the federal guidelines, but our internal policies and procedures as well. So everything is streamlined and straightforward. And then the communication plan, right? It's one of council's goals. How are we going to communicate this plan out to our constituents, to our stakeholders, and ensuring that is also in place. So on to the next slide. Nope, I do not have the updated. He did not put that up there. I sent it to him this afternoon. I'm sorry. I do have an example of the form and the rubric. I can email that all to you as well. So the communication plan. So what I propose is we engage a community partner, like a firm or council hire somebody to help hire somebody, whatever council decides they want to do with this, because I think it's really important that we create some type of ARPA dashboard. A lot of cities are already doing this, that's going to inform our stakeholders, what's the process, what are the projects, timelines, and things like that, just to kind of, inform people along the way. Also, what's important is that we get stakeholder support, so meaning our imaging and messaging. That is really important, before we are executing this plan, because I've heard over the last 6 or 7 months from council that we need to take hold and control our narrative. And I think ARPA is a great opportunity to the bigger picture of that, and this is kind of that starting point there, that we can start establishing that narrative and moving forward and really take control of that. The other thing that will be identified is the communication methods and frequency. So how often you all want me to communicate with you, that's up to council. How often I need to be communicating with city staff, this is a team effort. And then also the methods of communication with all of you as well as our public, how often, and determining those. And then also assessment tools. Let you all have assessment tools so you can assess these projects and as we go through the process, and making sure you have the tools that you need to determine whether they're successful or not, right? So I'd like to speak a little bit about the project identification. And I think it's important, the feds are going to require this, that the project meets an identified community need. The project supports a goal, right? What's the goal? That we avoid duplication of resources. So we're not putting our, getting our bang for our buck and putting it where it shouldn't be. The other important part is risk management. Some of my background is in risk management, so a risk assessment. Is this a high-risk project? What are some unintended consequences that we might come across that we need to make sure we're not blindsided by? And then also funding strategies. What's our return on investment? Making sure there's not unintended budgeting for the general fund once ARPA's spent, right? We're not obligating more money to our general fund unless it's intentional. So, for example, council may decide to hire a communication person and start that person out of ARPA funding, and then knowing that it's going to be in the general fund once that's expended. So I think that's important. Leveraging, very, very important here. Local, state, federal matching grants. What about community partners, the partners we already have? Maybe there's partners that we haven't identified that we can identify through this process. And so just to speak a little bit more on the leveraging, I have signed us up for the National League of Cities free ARPA grant navigation program. There is 7 or 8 states across the country, and Illinois is one of them, that can participate in this. And I'm waiting for somebody to call me. They're going to get a hold of me. Once I have all the data compiled, they're going to take that. They're going to kind of get to know the city of Rock Island a little bit. And then they're going to provide us with helping us kind of match those funds, grants that maybe some of our departments or that we don't know about. So I think that's a great opportunity. The National League of Cities has been a great resource for me. I've done all kinds of webinars and research. So that's a great thing for us. The other thing that's really important through this process is that, we have measurable steps and outcomes. How are we going to evaluate each project? Is it effective? What are the goals? Is it sustainable? Is it measurable? It needs to be specific. The feds are going to ask us for things like key performance indicators. They're going to ask us for, evidence-based interventions and things of that nature. So we need to ensure that everything that we're putting through is measurable and we have outcomes as well. Oops, excuse me. The overall, why I'm here tonight is to, get your feedback on the process. So the overall plan is to compile all the data, put all the policies, procedures, internal controls, and then the details of the communication plan in an overall ARPA plan, bring it back to council for your approval. Of course, there'll be tweaks. I'll implement the changes as you all seem necessary, and then communicate the plan out to our stakeholders, and then begin plan implementation. Thank you.
If you,
Thank you.
I saw you.
I have a question as well.
When you say the plan to be compiled, you mean including all of the projects?
Yep. So taking that data, presenting the data to council, and you guys are going to go through and decide we're going to have our top projects based on data, so it's going to be an objective process, right? And then council's going to decide from there on the needs assessment or the data approach, which ones to move forward, and then we'll communicate that plan out.
It'll fall into categories.
It'll fall into all the categories, yeah.
Infrastructure, amenities, facilities, things like that. It won't be specific projects until we get into those categories based on the data that we
Okay,
collect.
wait. So the plan will just include general categories, or it's going to include the specific projects that have been?
It will include the specific projects for you all to look at, absolutely.
Subset, I'm guessing, am I
Yes,
accurate?
something like that.
So,
Mark, you had a question?
yeah, just, and maybe I missed if I did, I'm sorry. So as far as communication is concerned, because we do have some citizens in Rock Island that aren't as mobile,
Yes.
has any thought or consideration been given to maybe doing like a Zoom broadcast to say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is how you can communicate your thoughts, just so that you have, we reach the broadest amount of our citizens as we can?
Absolutely, and what I've seen a lot of cities do through their town halls is also have a Zoom option, so you're capturing those as well that, might not be able, but then they have to be tech savvy as well. But yeah, that they would be able to participate through Zoom in the town hall. Yep, absolutely, especially now with the pandemic, people not wanting to come out.
There's also another way, too, that I know a lot of seniors in Illinois use. It's some kind of telephone thing. Where they
Oh.
just dial in. They don't have to be real tech savvy. They dial in.
Oh, okay,
And they can hear.
okay. Well,
Like-
that's a good thing to look into, absolutely.
Jen, and Dylan?
So I think it sounds really good, and I think you've done a great job.
Thank you. I think, I'm really excited. I think we've got a lot of things that we can do with this money to move the city of Rock Island forward.
Randy, do you have any questions?
Nope, I think she's done a great job so far, and thank you for the presentation tonight, Samantha.
Thank you, Randy.
Dylan?
I have only one question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Barely.
Okay. So when we decide which projects to fund, after people have submitted their form, is it just going to be, the city council vote on the top 10 projects, or, how do you envision that process taking place?
Well, I think city staff, we've gotten our feedback from our community, right? So we're using that feedback from our community. I think it's important, and we can discuss that too later, Dylan, if you've got some ideas on how to do that. I think it's also important to work with our city departments in that process as well.
Yeah, I would agree. Thumbs up overall.
Thank you.
I think you did a very good job. I think it identifies. It tells us, it gives us a roadmap on where to go, and I think that's what we need. So, thank you.
I think I want to touch that you've worked with other communities here and that sort of thing.
Oh,
and
yes.
committees.
So I have talked with Ryan Berger, who's next door at our county. He's basically doing what I'm doing over at the county. Had a very nice conversation with him, and we've decided to start some type of group, whether we meet quarterly, throughout the Quad Cities to discuss, what every city's doing, Davenport, Bettendorf, Moline, the county, see who all wants to participate. And also, I also talked to him, and I'm like, hey, you guys interested in maybe, I know they've already allocated a lot of their money, but it's like, hey, you guys interested in maybe partnering on something? So that's always an option as well, look to our county.
I think you've done a great job on
Thank you.
everything. I'll be really happy to see this get moving again. I'm in favor of I think one of our top priorities is hiring a communications professional like yesterday to start taking control of the city narrative.
Absolutely.
And this is a good place to start because a lot of it is going to be dependent on communication.
Absolutely.
I think everybody's agreed on that. We did that in the plan, too, in the strategic plan.
Yeah, a strategic plan can really drive us here.
Any other questions? Looks like you covered it all.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I will send out that form and that rubric.
Angela, library.
Okay. Well, for those who aren't here, John's going to put a copy of the plan and our outcomes for 2021 in your boxes. So I have passed those out to those who are here tonight. Let's see. So first off, thank you for having me. I think, our board president is back there, Udell Watts III, and our foundation director is back there as well. So thank you for coming. Let's see. Well, for those of you who are new, which probably might just be you at this point, I have to do this every year. They call, am I hitting the wrong button? Probably. No, there we go. We call it the 410 report for short. As you can see, it's part of the Illinois statutes, so it's ILS 5/4-10. The law lists what I must report to you every year, and it's contained in this presentation. However, there is a full report called the Illinois Public Library Annual Report, which is the IPLAR for short, and that also kind of goes hand in hand with this. So all of those documents have been sent to the city clerk and the finance director after the board approved them at their February 15th meeting. So we are in compliance with that. So tonight, I'm just going to go over the information that's in that report to give you an idea of what we submitted. And first off, finances. I don't know what to do with my mask anymore. Okay. It looks a lot worse than it is, mainly because in there is our payment for the JCI project, and that's recorded in expenditures but not in the same revenue line. So $555,000 of that is actually towards our payment this year to JCI. So we came in 8% under budget actually for our operating expenses this year, and that's great. And that was possible because of COVID still existing. We did not rehire some positions, but we are starting to do that. So it's kind of another one-year thing where we had a deficit budget. We ended up probably pretty even, and I'm really proud of that because it took a lot of work on staff's part to make sure we were always monitoring our budget. This shows it a little better, though. Our revenues at the library, really local and state funding accounts for 95% of our revenue, and that is by design. Local communities support their local libraries, and that's, we take that money, and it's kind of a crowdsourcing, crowdfunding type idea where Rock Island and Milan Blackhawk are two entities that help fund us. We listen to them all year long. We do what they ask of us. What you find at our libraries is not going to be what you find at the other libraries in the Quad Cities because our community is different. So it's really important for us to know what people want and that we would spend our money in the way that they want. And we can do that by how we receive our revenues. So just a little commentary on that. And then our expenditures, The bulk of our library budget is actually personnel. It's very small this year, and in fact, the library state standards say that we should be at least 65% for personnel. And the reason it's small, again, is we had a lot of open positions that we are just starting to hire back. So I expect next year this to be between 65 and 70%. So this is kind of a snapshot at the end of the year, so it doesn't necessarily reflect even today. But as you'll see, and I'll get into more detail on the items on the expenditure pie chart here, a little bit more on what we spend it on, what we've spent in the past. As you can see, this is 7 years' worth of personnel expenses. We're down 10 people since 2015, and that is, it's too bad, I mean, I'll be honest. But we are having some of our, I would call veteran staff retiring, or those that are bringing so much to the table and knowledge, but, do cost us more. Those retirements are coming, and that allows us to hire people in at a lower cost at this time. So we are able to get some of our full-time equivalents back, which is, you'll see that in that chart there. But we're really nowhere near we used to be. And we'll get there, hopefully. I think this year, funding from council is a really great step in the right direction. So, let's see, supplies, that varies every year. I mean, I just kind of like to show you what we spend on supplies. A lot of the reason it fluctuates is because we buy things in bulk through our state purchasing agreement and things. So we might buy something that lasts us for 3 years. So in one of those years where it was, say, $108,000, we might have bought a bunch of cups that year. I have no idea, but it saves us money in the long run. We don't have to redo that every year. So we're always keeping a good inventory of what we have. Same for our COVID mitigation supplies are also in there too. So that kind of, was pretty high in 2020, considering we weren't open a few months out of that year. So there's just a lot of things that go into these numbers. Service-wise, I expect this category to keep going up, particularly now. It's very similar to our personnel costs in the sense that our maintenance service contracts are in there. So snow plowing, cleaning, all the outdoor stuff, all that's, we're coming up on releasing those RFPs here pretty soon. And so we've had 3-year contracts with those, and we already know that it's going to go up substantially when we go out to bid for those. So that's one of the reasons why that's gone up. Also, library materials, electronic materials are growing in popularity. And a lot of people don't realize that we have to pay more for electronic materials than the general public, to the point that they're trying to sue over it. Right now, it's in the Illinois legislature. They're trying to get federal backing to sue these companies that are basically fleecing the public, because we're funded by public money, so it's no different than somebody going and purchasing it, yet we're charged sometimes upwards of 900% more than the general public on some of those digital materials. So hopefully we can get that under control. That's not our issue. That is nationwide, actually. So then there's the wonderful other category. This will go up a little bit more once we start ordering for the new library. It does reflect that we didn't receive as much money from our foundation the last year or so, and we won't be for the next 5 because they're putting all their money into the capital campaign. So their contribution for materials and things of that nature is a little bit lower. And then we aren't ordering as many physical library materials. We are kind of switching things over a little bit more to the electronic stuff because that's what's used just as much as the print, to be honest with you. But with only 2 locations and the mobile, we haven't had to buy for the 3rd. So like I say, that will be going up again next year. Transfers and contingencies, that is up, honestly, 90,000 of that is the bond repayment for our JCI project. We did have an increase in our fleet, our rental for our truck lease, and we did have a general fund increase for our charges to, the city, what the city charges us. So that's up. I'm a little bit concerned about that JCI project, and I can talk to John or the mayor or somebody a little bit more on that because, our payment is $90,000. We were supposed to save $30,000 a year. which was our, the environmental part of it, of the engineering, and we're not seeing that, and partly because gas and electric prices are so high. So I don't really know what we're supposed to do in that case, because it was supposed to be part of that contract, was we were supposed to be realizing a savings, so I'm just throwing that out there. All right, next thing, statistical overview, definitely up this year. It was really bad last year. We're not anywhere near our 2018 levels, but we are going up. Just a reminder, we're open not as many hours right now, so there's a big reason for them being down, but we've had almost over 18,000 more visitors this year than last year, so we're definitely going in the right direction. And in your packet is our 2021 outcomes, so that'll show all of the things that we're doing and the statistics on that. So this is something that's near and dear to our hearts, and you'll see it in our strategic plan when I get to that. We have some amazing partners. Some of them are within the city departments, but also then all of our partners throughout the city and in Milan. This isn't even the full list. The reason that they're important to us is that it increases our capacity to reach people in areas that we don't maybe have a building, or we don't have an inn, or we know people, that we can be there, we can do library card drives, et cetera. So it's you would never think that we serve people all the way out to Reynolds. So we go to Reynolds sometimes because of the Milan Blackhawk contract. So we're all over, and really, really happy with all of these folks, and I can't wait to keep expanding that. We have some more coming up, I think, this year that'll go with our strategic plan. So just my staff does an amazing job with that. So, yeah, we're going to talk money for a couple seconds here. Last year, we did ask for that 12.6% increase for this year, and you guys were awesome and gave us, $160,865 extra dollars. We're very, very happy for that. That's part of our tax levy. And you also gave us $100,000 in general fund dollars. So that's not part of our tax levy. So first and foremost, thank you for that, because that is making our lives so much better. We can breathe a little bit. We can look at making some improvements that we kind of put off for a while. So thank you on behalf of me and the board and my staff. We really do appreciate that. We are still trying, though, to recoup levels that allow us a little bit more breathing room. And if there are any extra dollars at the end of the year, we would like them to go into our assigned building fund. We do have an assigned building fund, and that is so we don't have to ask or rely on the capital improvement fund from the city as much. So we do save some money for things like our new library. There's a donation there to help purchase furnishings and fixtures and equipment. We also have money set aside to work on our downtown library. So anything, if we were to come up at the end of 2023, if we were to receive this fund requirement, that goes into what is called the assigned building reserve fund. So it goes to capital improvements at all of our locations. So the board is asking that we put $100,000 of that general fund distribution that you gave us actually into our tax levy. And then we would like to see the national inflation rate for next year, because we know how that's going to affect us. And I know every other department, I'm only speaking for the library, but I do know every other department is going to feel that as well. So that is our additional ask, and that's how we came up to that amount. So this really allows us to operate as we are, with the hopes that we'll finally get to like where we should be, I guess, because if you look at that chart there for the last 10 years, it's gone up and down, up and down. It's like 2 steps forward, no, 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of thing. So, yeah, I just like to include that information so you know why we're asking for it. And
Can I?
yeah,
Can I just
please.
ask you a clarification? I guess I'm not sure I'm understanding. So the extra $100,000 that council approved, you want that general fund money rolled into the tax levy for the next year? Is that?
Yes.
Plus an additional?
Yes.
7%. I
Yes.
just want to make sure I'm
Yep,
understanding.
that's exactly it. So that's what the board voted on at their last meeting. All right. Where am am I in time? Oh, okay. So, why an increase? Well, you know, again, we just haven't kept up with inflation. You know, if a average home pays $12 more per year than 17 years ago, that's less than $1 a year more they've been putting towards the library. And I know that that's a hardship for some folks. I totally get that. But it's also a hardship for us to be able to maintain our services and to serve the most people. So, like I said, the bond repayment and the foundation contributions are less, and then our increased maintenance costs. And inflation for the print and electronics it's very expensive, and then all of the inflation, all the other inflation stuff that we face skyrocketed, and every department is feeling that for sure. But let's focus on what you do get for that money. We've changed from equal access to equitable access, and that's been in my lifetime as a librarian, and there is a difference. You know, just being there is equal access because anyone can use us, but equitable access is us getting out to everyone so they make sure that they know we're there, or they can, you know, come to us even easier. And then also adding our additional services to do that. So our mobile library has been instrumental with that. Our partnership with the YMCA, I know the mayor often talks about public-private partnerships, and that's one of the, you know, it's going to be pretty amazing to be able to do that and to cost share for a location. We have added the homebound delivery and the outreach services, so we go all over the city. We now do online and virtual programs. We do the school outreach. And then, of course, what most people know us for is our print resources. And you ask anyone, they'll say books, but I can't even begin to explain the breadth of what we do at the library and how we help our community. Really, that kind of comes down to the trained librarians who went to school a very long time to be able to help people. We do refer people. Begin here is our mantra, because if you don't know where to start, no matter who you are, you can always start at the library. So our accumulations and liabilities is another thing asked by this report. We've never had liability, so these bonds are very nerve-wracking to me. I don't like to be in debt. But we absolutely, positively needed a new HVAC if we were going to keep downtown. The council is very adamant about keeping the downtown library, and I don't disagree. It serves a definite purpose, but it also needs a little TLC. So we did issue those bonds. The city issued them on our behalf for that project, and the lighting has been wonderful as well, because that's all LED lighting and it has to be saving us a little bit of money. And we also have the 90-day reserve as well as that assigned reserve for our building projects. So this is what I call, and I think it'll catch on, the COVIDian impact. It's not a word. I made it up, but, you know, here's the thing. We've been in COVID for so long that we had to come up with new ways to serve people not able to come to the library because of this awful pandemic. So we created e-cards, and everything you see on that list, I'm not going to read them all to you, but people still want them now that COVID is going away, and it's not like once you introduce something and just take it away, like, oh, well, this never existed, just forget about it. We're adding, and, to me, it's really exciting because I love to help people, but, the old adage of more with less, this is like more with less on steroids anymore. I mean, we're just running ragged. It's so worth it to see the positive outcomes in our community, though. So, since I have the floor, I just want to thank my boards. I have a municipal library board that you guys, Mayor appoints with your approval. I have the Milan Blackhawk Area Public Library District. They're elected officials just like you, so they run for election every 3 years on a rotating basis. And then we have the foundation board, who are volunteers and help us raise extra money so we can do all of the extra things we want to do for our community. I like to thank the public, because without them coming through the front door, there's no reason for us to come through the back door. And they're coming, and that's awesome. And I don't know if you've been following our Facebook page right now, the hearts people are filling out about why they love us. It makes us feel like we're doing something to really help the community. We know we are, but sometimes until you see it, it just makes it a little more real. And then the staff for the last 2.5 years dealing with the COVID. I know we're not considered, like fire and police and whatnot, but we were there every day. We were finding new ways to help people, and they are frontline staff and have had to deal with, possible exposure and sitting next to people who are trying to learn how to use a computer and worrying about whether or not, they're going to bring a disease home to their family. But they mean the world to me, my staff, and they've done a great job. So with that, these are some more things that we do. I'm really happy to say goodbye to 2021. I really am. And so my presentation tonight is actually two different things. So if there's any questions about this part, I'd be glad to take them now. Otherwise, I can just roll right into our strategic plan.
I just want to commend you. I'm just so glad you increased your operating hours so that working people and more access for students. I think that's great.
Yeah, we have to do more of that when the new library opens, and we plan on it, but now we're getting back a little bit more. So, okay, well, goodbye 2021 and hello 2022. You're going to see a theme here. This actually came about, it's kind of funny. Transformative, relevant, equitable, and engaged ended up being our 4 goal words, if you will, our focus for the next 3 years. And I was giving a presentation to Rotary right after we had released some of our questionnaires and surveys and whatnot. And somebody said, do you know that's I didn't put the words in that order, but he's like, if you put them in this order, it spells tree. And I'm like, yes, it does. I mean, I can't think of a better way for a library to be. We're like solid, strong, I'm just so excited about it. We did all of this in-house. I have an amazing staff, like I said. It did take a year. I mean, if we would have paid somebody, it would have been $20,000, $30,000, and it probably would have been done in a few months. But I really feel like we immersed ourselves into our city, tried to get as many responses to our surveying and our community conversations, and it was during a very difficult time with COVID. We started in January of 2021. So we did external methods with the public surveying, the community conversations, and the stakeholder planning sessions. The surveys were sent out in a scientific method via our email distribution list. So those are library card holders. But we also used them in print form. We brought some to the King Center. We brought some to our mobile library stops. We went to all of the, wherever we did any sort of outreach at the, Fort Armstrong and places like that. We took the surveys and we actually filled them out if they couldn't fill them out with their responses. We did all of our homebound people we gave a survey to and they responded. So we tried to hit every different type of individual in our community that we could. And for the first time, we had 560 completed surveys, and scientifically valid is over 200, so we're thrilled with that. Also, 20% were non-library card users or card holders, so they fell into that category, which is pretty high, honestly. So we're thrilled with what we got in return. And from all of that information, which took a lot of time to go through, like I say, we came up with these 4 areas of focus, and they came up with that by using the not only the questions asked, the Likert scales and all that, but actually the comments written into those surveys. So our mission actually is the same. It is the trunk of our tree, if you will, and I could go on with metaphors all night, so I'll try not to and puns. We make our community stronger by connecting people to resources, services, events, and each other. That was a lot more doable back before COVID when this was originally created because we could connect people with each other and we were going gangbusters on that. We just had to figure out a way to do it differently now. And now, like I said, we have to do it in 2 different ways, online and in person. So with that, enhancing the livability of our service areas by offering in-person and online resources that cultivate literacy, belonging, and personal growth. That's our vision. And we have public values listed there, and I'm not going to read to you. But these are the things that people value about us, put in words that kind of go with the plan. So if you go into the next slide, This is new for us. We didn't do staff values last time. We didn't do a lot of staff, intervention with the plan. And I'm so glad that we did this time. All those folks that are listed there, they're not your managers. They're truly frontline staff workers, and they got to tell you exactly what, they thought about what our values should be as library workers. And it is lengthy, but it's wonderful. So I hope you get a chance to take the time to read that. They do, like I say, such a great job. They have their cultural statement and their staff values. And so a lot of times we take these items and put them in their performance reviews as goals. So we know that we're always touching base with them on these values to make sure that they're doing them internally as well as externally. So let's get into the meat of it. We have our first goal is transformative. I have a nice little quote on each goal, but essentially it's we change lives. And then at the top, it'll tell you what was said in the survey that kind of goes with this goal. So our community will experience renewal and achieve personal goals by using library resources, including materials, services, and events. Now, the way our plan is laid out is the goal is the overarching theme. Objectives, which are listed under there in the bullet points, are the measurables. Then we also have tasks, which are in your plan there, not on the screen, that are many. And then we have an internal document that would probably make your eyes water that lists all of our benchmarks and dates and persons responsible. So there's more to this than what you have. This is kind of just the pretty version, if you will. But I wanted to put the goals and the objectives on there so you kind of got an idea of where we were moving over the next 3 years. We will have 5 locations if you consider our mobile and our online and then our new library. And they're all going to mean something different to people. And they're all going to provide something different to people. So we're trying to differentiate that in our minds and clearly define how each one will transform lives. Annually, we're going to really focus on one event each month that is specifically for educational resources. We want people to move upward to help them with job searches, education, and things like that. So instead of, we do this already, but once it's written down, then you really do it. So that's why we put it in there. And then the digital divide, as you know, very, very important. We've done a good job with that, but we want to increase our offerings to technology each year of the plan. And that is our transformative goal. Let's see. Then we go to relevant. We're here for you. And I want to say a little bit about our goal. This is something I came up with. Instead of saying the library will do this, we turn it around. We say our community will experience this. We don't want to just do things for people. We want our community to actually feel that. So they'll experience resources and facilities in response to community wants and needs. So again, we have our objectives. We know we need to do some work to the downtown library. It needs to be more user-friendly. We need to upgrade those service points. It needs new carpet terribly. We need some new shelving, and we'd like to move things around a bit. And again, kind of mimicking what the city does, we want to keep that open communication channel between patron and staff suggestions. We have some ideas on how we're going to do that. And then trend spotting is going to be a thing, and it's something that really excites our staff, particularly ones that our frontline staff that maybe get a little bored from time to time, that they can be trend spotters for us, that they can tell us, hey, I just watched, Jimmy Kimmel last night, and he said this, and we need to do this, and all of a sudden it's on our Facebook page. That's how we get followers. We have a lot of followers for being so creative and relevant. So we're going to continue that. All right, and then we go to equitable. Community will experience mutual respect and belonging at all library facilities and events. This is so important to us. We know we have a lot of work to do. We're thrilled to have a copy of the West End assessment right now, and I know they're going to continue working on that. So we plan on figuring out how we can, kind of partner more with the King Center and the West End. We're going to go through the American Library Association's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. They have a scorecard for libraries and information organizations. We're going to look at all our policies and procedures and make sure that we're not being exclusive. We want to be inclusive. We'll also be looking at some ADA audits because I know there's some work to do there. And then once the Library to Go is kind of freed from its current schedule. You know, it has a specific schedule because we're waiting for our new library to open, so it does have some visits on that area of town. We're going to look for the more underrepresented areas to go to. So that's on our list of things to do. And then it's really important for us to become fine-free, and I'm pleased to say that the Library Foundation is going to donate all of their birdies for charity money this year to go towards fines for people that aren't able to pay them, particularly the children. We do a fine tree every year and raise a few $1,000s. This will raise a lot more, so we can clear some cards for kids to come back into the library. So these are things that are on the agenda and on the horizon for us this year. Let's see, engaged. We want to bring people together. We want people to experience a connection with the library. That's intentional, and it does have the measured outcomes. Obviously, there's a theme here tonight. Every one of us have spoken about outcomes and measurements and things like that. Very important to us. We are so proud to be celebrating our 150 years of service this fall. I'll have a letter to the editor probably next month or next week or two. March 7th, 1872 is when public libraries were made possible in Illinois through the Illinois legislature with the Local Library Act. So that was when, way back in the day, we started, coming to council and asking, for you to create an ordinance for a free public library, and you'll be learning a lot more about that over the next year. Really excited about that. Our adult services do go on field trips. They're already doing that, but this is how we learn about our agencies, so we can refer people correctly. It's also, we form partnerships too, like with Project Now, we'll have them come over and do programs and things. So it's kind of a two-way street, those field trips. We do keep a database on what we learn about at those field trips for staff to look at. And then library card registration, of course, is important, but it's not as important as you would think it used to be. You don't need a library card for necessarily everything. People come and use us without ever getting a card. So those are the folks that are pretty hard to track. We want them to, so we're going to try to make it clear that, it really benefits not only you but us, so we can, show the council how many people do use us, but there's more than just library card holders. And then we want to have that engagement component to all of our programs and staff interactions, so we're working on some internal documents for that. So, new this year, we added a literacy action plan. This is so minimal. I didn't want to put a million more slides in there, but everyone has the right to read and choose what they want to read. And it is our job as library workers to get out there and to promote and support literacy. We do that. Goals 1 through 3 in that plan, in that document, tell you more about what we'll do, but that's more of a marketing stance on how we support it. And then we get into more nuts and bolts with family literacy, training parents to be able to, provide literacy opportunities in the home, things like that. And the education staff, both public and parochial, we want to make sure that they have the tools they need to send things home with students that are going to benefit them after they leave school. And then our library collections, we want to be in partnership with the community initiatives. So we have an way to evaluate that. We may come back at that time to tell you how we've done with that. And then finally, and then I will stop. I could talk to you all night about the library. The final piece of the puzzle is to help make our city complete. We need to work together. We realize that there is that strategic plan. I think is it the final? I don't know if it's the final one, but the document that I have, I went through and I took out some of the things that I know we can do a lot with the city on. And I just kind of listed them there. So you knew that we were keeping the city in mind when we're looking through our plan and trying to, slot some places in that we can help, particularly in economic development. We have 1 million business resources. We have InfoUSA databases, things that, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. We have it already. We have, ways to communicate with our cardholder base, which, 17,000, 18,000 people. We can't turn that over to the city, but we can certainly do it on behalf of the city as being a part of a city entity. So there's ways we can help with communications. We did do a demo with the Simplicity app lady, and down the road we may have a specific part of that. Right now, we'll probably just tag along with the city, but we can be a specific icon on that. And then placemaking. People move to cities because of their libraries, so it's very, very important to make sure, and their parks and all the other things that people say they want. I mean, we have an amazing library, and if you don't know that, I'm really, really sorry, because it is. Our collection is one of the best. Our programs are incredible, and we do it on, quite frankly, a very bare bones budget, and that's why I'm so proud, and I love to talk about it, because, you know, we really do pave the way in Illinois in particular. There's cities of our size up in the Chicago area that have $8 and $9 million budgets, and I think we do more. I'll be honest, I'm really proud of everybody, and I want to say thanks one more time to staff, but also to our director of circulation. She's actually a graphic artist, and she has a degree in it, so she did this whole thing for us, made it pretty, and it looks kind of Eric Carle-like if you're a fan of children's literature. The Very Hungry Caterpillar, kind of wanted it to look like that and feel like that. So, any questions? You probably all want to use the restroom by now.
Anybody virtually out there have any questions?
Your passion shows.
Yeah, oh, yeah, very much. All right, well, I'm always available for a
Good, good
tour
name.
if you want to stop by.
Do you guys have field trips into the library? Do you bring actual classroom students into? And in full transparency, my kids have never been to the library.
Yep,
so-
no, that's fine, and you're not alone. No, they don't come to us. They don't have time, it's not in their curriculum. We go to them.
Is that
We-
something we could do? I mean, you're building a brand-new library. Is that something to
I would
show it
love
off?
to. I would love to. We'll have to see what happens. We go to them, though, all the time. So I know it's not the same. We used to have third graders come on a tour every year, and that hasn't happened in a long time. So,
Have regular library time in their
We should make that
curriculum?
no.
They don't anymore?
No, I can talk to you more about that. They might, but they don't have librarians in the schools, so there's one for the school district, from what I understand. So it's something that I know I've worked with Dr. Lawrence on a little bit and want to continue moving forward with, because it's important. So, well, thank you.
I'd like to just shout out, Adele, thank you, and the board, both the foundation board and your board volunteer their time, and thank you for your leadership. Adele, I know you've been there quite a while, but happy to be here, but thank you for everybody's efforts to make this happen.
Thank you. All right. Send me an email if you have anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We do need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second, roll call, please.
Alderperson Robinson.
Aye.
Gilbert. Aye. Swanson.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Poulos.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Alderman Hurt. I forgot you.
No worries. Yes.